Welcome back for another Sins of a Solar Empire 2 video. Today we are redoing the Skirantra Carrier for the Vasari. I did put out a previous video for the Carrier. Enough has changed about the way that this ship is used and the upgrades and the new ships to it, so I thought it's worth redoing the video on this one. At base, this ship has let's turn off the look. At base, this ship comes with 500 durability, 2,520 shield points, 1,480 armor points with an armor strength of 60, 5,160 hull points, and 250 antimatter. It also comes with I believe it's three. Nope, comes with two. Comes with two armaments of fighters or bombers. With one armament of fighters, you get two fighters. With one of bombers, you get three bombers. It does upgrade it does improve the number of available strike craft in your fleet at levels 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10 to go to a max of 7 strike craft at level 10. The weapons on this ship include the two medium wave cannons with 200 pierce. This is up from what it used to be, which I believe it was a light wave cannon that had only 120 or 180 pierce before patch 1.4. It has the most point defense guns of any of the capital ships that the Vasari have, with 6. And it has one heavy phase missile launcher for 15 DPS and 600 pierce. Do quick render arcs and weapon names. Turn those on. So the medium wave cannons are front mounted, one on either side of, I'll call those fangs, one on either side of the fangs that mostly shoot to the front. It looks to be about a, I don't know what I'd call that, like a 25-degree overlap front to back. So it's quite a small range for those. For the heavy phase missile, the phase missiles launch off the bottom of the ship. I think you can see that here. But it has this nice big arc here that it shoots those missiles because they have the homing capabilities. And then for point defense, we have 2 rear mounted on either side that are actually goes pretty far forward to anything a little bit off to the side, but then fully gets you all the way in the rear. The middle mounted ones can pretty much hit just about anywhere with point defense. And where is the last one? The other 2 are underneath here that look to be able to do just about everything. So for those point defense pulse guns, we pretty much have at least three guns that are able to hit just about the entire range that something would be shooting at you. Really, these 2 and this one on the bottom can probably get everything to the front. Anything on the side, you'll have all 3, and then on the rear, it looks like you probably have all 6 being able to shoot down missiles or strike craft. As I said, the medium wave cannon is a buff from the last patch and new in patch 1.4. Trying to think what else. All right, that's it. So if you have a fully upgraded Skirantra, you go from 2,520 shield points up to 3,125. Armor of 1,480 up to 1,925. And then hull points up from 5,160 up to 7,700 or 7,330. When it gets to level 10, it is a jump up to 6,285 shield points, which is about double shields, about another 3,000 or so. Armor points goes to just shy of 3,100. Which is about a 1,100 armor point jump. Hull points looks to go up about 5,000 up to 13,925. And then antimatter, actually I don't have that all the way upgraded. Let's do that real quick. Antimatter goes all the way up to 646 with a 2.3 antimatter restore per second. While those are all really good stats, we'll talk real quick about the strike craft because it's kind of the biggest, well, one of the reasons you get this. So it does come with the Heavy Fighter Squadron, which was introduced in patch 1.4 for the Vasari, and it has the same bomber squadrons that it's had for quite a while. We'll look at their stats. The Heavy Fighter, with no additional buffs outside of the researches available to it, has 74 or does have shield points, which I think is unique to Vasari. I think they are the only ones with shield, not using an ability. I believe that the Advent carrier, the Halcyon, can give shield points to all fighters in a gravity well with its level 6 skill, but they do not come out of the carrier with shield points. Also has 39 armor points with an armor strength of 54. I don't think too much other than some of the point defense guns with 0 pierce does any reduced damage, so I think any other fighter that shoots at it will be able to pierce that armor strength. And then 178 hull points with max upgrades. With no upgrades, it starts with 60 shield points, 30 armor points, 18 armor strength, and 125 hull, with a 12 DPS light beam with 120 pierce. Fully upgraded, that is 17.8. I believe it was patch 1.41 corrected that the fighters actually receive upgrades when upgrading the beam tech tree. And then real quick on the bombers we've seen before, they're unchanged. 0 durability with 45 armor points and 18 armor strength with 90 hull points with a max speed of 960, and light phase missiles with 5.3 DPS and 300 pierce. Those light phase missiles do only have, I believe, 1 HP, so they will be able to get point defense down by anything that shoots at them. But if I remember correctly, I believe they shoot 3 or 4 of those phase missiles per volley. With all of the tech upgrades and none of the skills on the ship, they're up at 58 armor points with 54 armor strength and 128 hull with 7.3 versus, I believe it was the 5.3 DPS. So it gives you 2 extra DPS per phase missile. I'm going to jump and do the Elite Strike Craft first, because this will directly impact your fighters. So the Elite Strike Craft used to be a bomber-only bonus where the bombers would get a little bit extra weapon damage, a little bit extra hull points, and I think the hull regeneration is new, where you actively get hull regeneration once you're into the hull on the ship. So now with patch 1.41, I believe it was, because I think when 1.4 launched, this was still only applicable to bombers, but it has been corrected. So this is a significant buff for any of the fighters that come out of the Vasari carriers. So go ahead and grab that. It goes from 18 to 24, 18 to 24 in hull points as well, and then regen 36 to 48. So ends with a final of 30 extra weapon damage, 30 max hull points, and 60 hull regeneration. Let's do some damage to this ship so you can see it in action. It does have active shield regeneration, so I'm going to go in here and just show you that I have regenerative shielding upgraded. There we go. So it does have all in combat regeneration, so it has 2.4 shield regen. It does not have armor point regen currently, because there's a ship item that you can get that gives you in combat armor regen. And then the hull points, it does actively regen hull points while it is in the air. I think also while in combat. I don't want that. While I'm still talking about them, the Strikecraft armor upgrade was also fixed in patch 1.41, away from the 1.4 patch, where it now gives max armor points and armor regeneration in combat and armor strength to all Strikecraft and not just bombers. I think this was a good fix by the developers to make sure that it also applied to the interceptors. That said, I will get it just to, there we go. So this gives armor repair of 1.5 per second. Then you have hull repair still at 3.1 and the shield at 2.4. But you'll notice you are now up to 21.7 fighter DPS versus the starting 12. So we're 60, 30, 125 here. And this one is now 74, so up 14. Armor points bumps up to from 30 to 117 with 66 armor strength, and then 220 hull points that you have to fight through versus 125. So a very significant boost to the fighters. Bombers are now at 9 DPS with 300 Pierce, up to 170 hull points, which is still a little bit behind the fighters. And then the armor points is up to 136, so quite tanky for bombers. I think this gives the tankiest aircraft, I think, in the game if it comes from the carrier and you have the item and you've researched the elite strike craft. So quite good on the buffs there. I will say for the most part, you will most likely be fielding heavy fighters currently. I think it's kind of a general consensus that most bombers are currently not all that superior at the moment. So heavy fighters, you can win. I think I've tested it, and I've won a couple times when an advent had about 50 or 60 fighters up in the air, and I maybe only had 5 or 6. And you are still actually fairly close and able to keep pace with them with just your small count versus their significant count, because theirs are just so much more fragile. So for the most part, you will be running heavy fighters. They're just currently too good. And bombers, while 300 Pierce is substantial versus the 120, the fighters also intercept missiles. So you actually don't want them to be wasting their damage on missiles in interception. The only other thing to discuss, I think, with the fighters is that very specifically the Vasari Heavy Fighter or Interceptor has a unique fighter flight pattern where they shoot much more rapidly than the other fighter counterparts from both the Tech and the Advent, which is why I think that these fighters are able to deal with an Advent fighter fleet much quicker than some of the other, or why you can have air superiority with so few of them in your fleet. So we'll run a test at the end of the video to show how quickly I think that these heavy fighters can clear the air from enemy strike craft. That said, unfortunately, this ship is one of the few ships in the game currently, I think, that has a problem of every skill is good. And so we'll go over their skills. So the biggest reason you probably had been getting them prior to patch 1.4 is this nanite armor. I think that now in patch 1.42, I think that this nanite armor is still just as good as it used to be. So nanite armor provides a armor restoration to a target ally ship. It also gives an armor strength bonus to that ship for a short duration. And then it's on a very short 12-second cooldown, which remains the same across all levels. Range of 6,600, so I think it's the same range as the ship can shoot. Pretty close, a little bit bigger than the fire capability of it. Antimatter goes down from 90, 75 to 60. Armor restored goes up from 12 to 24 to 36. So you're healing a third of your own ally's armor with one cast. The armor strength goes from 108 to 162 to 216 additional armor, which if something is shooting a capital ship, which has 500 durability, and I've got some in the back just to show. So it has 126 armor on it currently. You would be adding 216 armor to this ship that ramps down from 216 down to 72 over the course of 108 seconds. You can cast nanite armor multiple times on one target. The only thing that you get though is the armor restored. The initial armor and the duration reset every time you cast it. So this is, I would say, the most valuable skill in the game to keep your own capital ships alive. If you are a capital ship heavy fleet, you absolutely should have a number of these, probably also spec'd to all fighters, just so you can deal with enemy bombers, or mostly advent bombers. I don't think Tech is building too much strike craft at the moment other than corvettes, so heavy fighters will actually do quite well against Tech corvettes, but nanite armor is what you want if you are capital ship heavy or you think that your capital ships are about to be focused. So extremely, extremely good skill. The other one that is also good is Repair Cloud. Repair Cloud is a kind of a fire and forget. So when you push the Repair Cloud skill, it drops essentially an AoE heal in this area to every ship actively in the range of this ability. Once that's been used, it is not a channel, meaning that any ship that gets the buff applied to it gets the hull and armor regen for the duration of the cast, which is 18 seconds and goes up to 24, and then I believe 36, if I'm doing my math right. We'll skip to it. 24, 30. So for 30 seconds, you would get 18, 24, and then you get 24 at level 3. So antimatter does ramp down from 90 down to 60, so 90, 75, and 60. Let's see, his cooldown's 54. Cooldown goes down from 54 to, I think, 48, and then 42. And then essentially it's not a cloud, so if you use it, it doesn't just mean anything passing through it gets the heal, it's anything that's actively in the repair cloud when you use it, and then you could fly outside of this area and you have the repair cloud moving. It is best used when enemy ships are breaking through shields and getting to armor for the first time, because armor is stronger than hull. But you can use these two in combination to get a rather significant armor heal, or heal on any ship really. It will repair hull if there is any hull damage first before it gets to armor. So I do recommend using Repair Cloud before you cross over from armor into hull, just because it's more effective to heal armor than it is to heal hull. We talked about Elite Strike Craft just a second ago. I'm mixed on this one. It probably does help with clearing early gravity wells. You can grab 1 point to get to 18 extra weapon damage, especially if you spec away from fighters and into bombers. But I think that the current meta is go the heavy fighters once you start getting into PvP, or you start seeing a lot of corvettes or enemy strike craft. And then the last skill is the Replicate Forces ultimate. This is has a 4-minute cooldown, has a range of 6,000, antimatter cost of 120, and you essentially create a copy of any frigate or cruiser that you have in the area. You create 3 copies. It lasts for 3 minutes, and these copies can only traverse within the gravity well that you cast it. They cannot warp with you, and they do not last permanently. So I would say good candidates to use replicate forces on would be the oppressor, would be the Volrak. If you really need some extra aircraft, you could use it on the transporter, and I think you can even use it on the fabricator, and you can just duplicate and have additional ships being built at that time. So again, so this ship kind of dual purposes for us. It's our best point defense ship. It is the most strike craft that we can carry, and it also is the medic for our fleet. So it's got a lot of responsibilities on it just to keep up with what it's doing. So real quick on items, the nano catalyzer swarm, early, absolutely get it. Even late, I recommend having some sort of antimatter regen. This ship in particular is actually probably worth getting both the nano catalyzer and I really don't like the antimatter recharger. I think it's kind of a waste of a Kalinide, because there's a lot of resource heavy stuff that we can get with Kalinide. There's a couple other utility items that we can get with Kalinide. And I think it just gets used. Oh, sorry, my cat wants my lap. I think Kalinide is better used than antimatter recharger for a lot of ships. This is probably the only one of the 5 or 6 ships that I think antimatter recharger is worth getting, and then even alongside with the nano catalyzer swarm. If it is as close a fight in terms of what the enemy is able to do versus what you can do, if you can keep your antimatter up and continuously cast nanite armor, continuously cast repair cloud on cooldown, you get a significant edge over your opponent. One thing I do want to add, I forgot to add this with nanite armor the first time. If you cast it on your own ship, this will probably need to be manually recast on cooldown. For some reason, this ship has a tendency to not reapply a nanite armor to something that already has the initial armor strength applied to it. So you just to keep something alive, you might actually have to select your carrier and manually cast the nanite armor on something if it already has one application on it. Second item is nanite repair swarm. I think that this one is a good one to have at most times, so especially early game, probably through mid game. And then maybe once you get to late game, when there's too much damage, probably around the 40-minute mark, is you can stop using them. But anything to boost the heal ability of this ship, it is a medic as I view it, with some strike craft support. So you want nano repair swarm, stack it with nanite armor, stack it with repair cloud, and just keep anything and everything alive that is getting shot at. Nano attack swarm, I don't like it on this ship. The range of 6,000 is the same range as repair cloud. If it's the same range as repair cloud, you are probably just about in range to get shot by an enemy. Definitely within range of long-range missile cruisers, like Canrack, like Javelin, and things that can kill you. So I don't want this ship anywhere near where it can cast nano attack swarm. For the most part, I don't even want it fighting with the weapons on the ship unless it has to, or you know that you're in a fight that you where this ship is safe, or you're in a fight where you know you're going to win, and it'll just help you clear things slightly quicker. The beam modulator. There are no beams on this ship. Don't get the beam modulator on this ship. The phase missiles. Phase missiles only apply to the ship itself. It does not apply to the bombers. We'll go ahead and get it and show you. Any day now. There we go. So I believe it was, yeah, it's still in a 9. So the bombers don't get a phase missile augment upgrade by using this. So this bonus phase missile damage. I believe this is my other level 10. So this one is 30.6. This bumps it to 36, which is nothing. So ignore that. The medium wave cannons, you do have a DPS of 44 at max level, or 10. I don't think it's necessary to get the wave modulator on this ship. It goes from 22 to 36. Again, I don't think that this ship is going to be anywhere in range where it should be shooting its wave weapons at all. I think it should be so far back that you're not doing anything with it. Phase attenuated shield. I do think that this is a good item for this ship, specifically because if you're fighting against another Vasari, it does have that active action that blocks all phase missiles. So it essentially completely neuters a Canrack fleet. It gets rid of any bombing fleets and any other capital ships like the Desolator can not hit it with its skills, cannot hit it with its heavy missiles. So against a Vasari, absolutely 100%, I would say on every capital ship is you want phase attenuated shield. Against other factions, I'm not as sure how much you want it. We'll get it, we'll apply it. Let's see, and open debug, damage it a little bit. You do have 40 regen a second versus, we'll turn it off. Okay, so that's better than I thought. So I think you saw that it was 30, 36, 37 shield regen a second versus 18.6. So that's actually a pretty serious buff to shield regen. So I'm actually going to change my stance on that and say that you want this against anything just to get those shields up quicker. It's less important on the Alliance because you'll have shield burst. And the most important thing with shield burst is actually levels and not items. So phase attenuated shield will give you a little bit of extra shield regen after the burst. But if you're not actively regenning at all times, maybe this isn't something you necessarily want. Inertial anchor. I think that this item is dependent on how much aircraft an enemy fleet has. If you are up against a Sova or Percheron spammer for tech, or you're up against an Aria drone host spammer and Halcyon for Advent, or you're up against a Skirantra spammer with Vasari transport support, then I say you definitely would want this on a number of ships. Otherwise, I think the inertial anchor is better served on a midline ship, which in most cases is going to be your Evacuator and Marauder, where you'll want the Devastator up front. The Desolator kind of unfortunately gets pulled into the front just because you actually want this doing damage. And then these two ships are hanging back, mostly shooting at enemy frontline frigates or cruisers. And then they get that item on themselves. So 6,000 range is anything in range here. Is this big one here. So hit or miss. If the enemy's heavy on fighters, you probably want this just to keep yourself alive. If they're chasing you, it'll give your fighters the ability just to absolutely wreak havoc and win the air fight without really trying all that hard, because you will completely outspeed and out-accelerate any enemy fighters. Plus, with all the point defense you have on this ship, the enemy missiles are going to be so much slowed down that you have the ability to point defense a lot more of them. Self-repairing armor, if you do find that this ship is significantly getting targeted by the enemy fleet, you do want this on the ship. It is, you cannot self-cast nanite armor on yourself, but you can have two of them pass it back and forth. But you do want if you want to keep this ship alive because it is your medic, you would want self-repairing armor as soon as you can get it. I already talked about the Strikecraft armor. I don't think it's necessarily required unless you have some spare Tauronite sitting around. I think that there's better places for Tauronite to be spent, like getting another Devastator or getting another Desolator. Personally, this isn't up on my list enough, other than we're going to talk about it here. That it does give you armor regen in combat for fighters, which I think is unique to just this faction. You do have the max armor points, you do have the armor strength, so it will make your fighters tankier, but I think that that's just a nice to have, and I don't think it's competitively viable. So I'll go ahead and actually grab how I would build it. Is the two antimatter two antimatter weapons, and then the two that would keep you alive that much longer. You will notice that phase attenuated shield procced itself there because I am low on health. This item does not. The active blocks phase missiles. Now you can see that there is no phase missile being shot at me. There's no damage being done to me because these two ships are allies. So there was no damage done. This more or less auto casts as soon as you take any damage. If you want to make sure that it's phase missile blocking only, you will have to manually cast it, which could be burdensome for some people, but actually that you need to be very careful about when this gets cast. And then we'll talk about the other items. So the gravity stabilizer, I actually think that this is possibly a worthwhile item if you do find yourself being focus fired on this ship. It might make sense that you want to outrun enemy capitals. You won't outrun, I think, hardly any. Where's my speed? Max speed of 600. So 600 is the slowest capital ships we have. We have two at 600. I believe that the Devastator is 660, the Desolator is 660, and then the Marauder has a 720. So the Skirantra and the Evacuator are the slowest in our fleet. So the only ones I would say you probably would get rid of is be the phase attenuated shield and get that instead. We'll grab that. So that bumps you up to 672. Hit L to level. Grab that. Does it have that active? It does. So now you have a max speed of 780, which is quite fast. You are kind of speed racer at that point, whereas other capital ships 936. So you'll be pretty fast. I don't know if this is something you would need to do. Resonance amplifier, I think that this item is bad overall. If you're going for a phase resonance build and you are not actively jumping your ships back and forth to keep the buff applied, being in gravity well isn't going to keep you living any longer. When you have it at base, you get the phase resonance points for 2 minutes to apply. When you get it down here, you go from 2 minutes to I believe it's either 4 or 6 minutes. So you get a nice chunk there. Oh no, I did that wrong. So you're at 2 minutes. You go from 2 minutes to 4 minutes once you get to level 3. To go from 2 minutes to 6 minutes, if you're having a 6-minute fight early game when you're still tier 2, you're probably doing it wrong. And I would say that this is not a worthwhile item pretty much at any point in the game. Antimatter recharger, actually, like I said, this is the one ship that I would actually get this on if you have spare Kalinide to spend. If you run out of antimatter, you are just a fighter carrier and a point defense platform. Everything dies if you don't have antimatter, so this is what's going to keep you going. Infrastructure. Unique to Exodus, this is the one ship that if, let's say, you don't have an Endurium to put a self-repairing armor, or you don't think that you're going to be chased in this one, you don't have a gravity stabilizer because there's no point in it, this would be probably one of the two that I would stick any of these infrastructures on, just because it's going to stay. This ship should be as far back as you can keep it while effectively healing any of the other capital ships that are taking damage. So I have this backwards, but for instance, if the Devastator is fighting something up here, you actually want the Skirantra probably just close enough to cast Repair Cloud, and just close enough to have nanite armor, and just close enough to have the point defense, collecting any missiles that are on the Devastator. So you don't want this that far forward, and so infrastructure actually makes a lot of sense on this ship. Minor factions, the Colony Seed Nanites, you could actually get this ship second and send it in the opposite direction of your evacuator and start colonizing. It has the ability to do quite well on its own if you switch from fighters to bombers. You do have to clear flak early on your own, just to make sure that the phase missiles aren't being intercepted by their flak cannons, but having this on its own is actually not that bad. Jump field stabilizer, I don't think that this is, I mean, you can have a spare one ready to go, just in case the ship is on its way out and it's getting focus fired and you need to cut your jump time from 18 to 6 and then 6 down to 3. So you can actually get very, very quick phase jump charge time on Alliance and Exodus. So coupling this in, you will get out of a gravity well exceedingly fast. Sometimes shocking if you're hurt. If you do get to the point where the ship is focus fired and you think you can save it, you can grab a crippled hull. It does essentially take your hull points, doubles them, and then turns them into crippled hull. You can do this swap very quickly as long as you have one already in your inventory, and it applies instantly. So even if you're already in crippled hull, and let's say you have 10,000 left, for example, it automatically doubles you to 20 at the moment you drop it in, or you do it as you're going from green hull into red, and it very quickly increases the survivability of your ship. The other one that's missing here is the Aluxian with the bonus ship experience and the bonus cooldown. 20% cooldown would be actually quite good on this ship if you think you can handle the antimatter costs. Antimatter of 60 and 60 at max level is not that big a deal because, as you can see here, you have essentially the ability to cast 10 of those in succession and not run out of antimatter. But early game, when these are costing 90 apiece, that adds up very quickly. Where's my... There it is. So 90 apiece with 250 antimatter. You are essentially out of antimatter after 3 casts. So that can hurt quite quickly with antimatter. Let's see. And what was I talking about? I think that's all the ship items from minor factions. Right? 1, 2, 3, and 4. Yeah, 4. So decent ones for this to have. And then phase resonance. I talked about it in the last video. Mobility, only good if you can get to mobility 3. Completely ignore phase jump speed. Except I played a game earlier on a 1v1 map that had an exceedingly long jump lane from a home planet into the center planet. I cannot remember for the life of me what it's called. Maybe it's available. Nope, I didn't save it. So that was the only time I actually wanted mobility for phase jump speed, because the jumps themselves in that map, it was taking 15 or 20 seconds to go from one planet to another. So that was the first time I actually wanted it. However, against the player, max speed is going to be the most important thing. I think phase jump speed just kind of helps you if you screwed up already and you're trying to triage what you've screwed up. But offensively, phase jump speed is maybe only going to be good at chasing something that's going from gravity well 1 to gravity well 2. So you can maybe get into a good position that way. But it's not going to give you combat stats. And that max speed is good, but you don't kill anything quicker. Reload speed, you don't care, I don't think, about reload speed. Like I said, this ship is not sitting anywhere near the front line. It's not going to be doing any damage, or should not be doing any damage whatsoever, to the point where reload's going to matter. Utility, though, having any additional antimatter cost reductions early game is going to be good. Having cooldowns is absolutely going to be good, and especially if you can stack it with the Aluxian item, even just getting level 3, you can have a 32% ability cooldown, which gets you under 10 seconds, down around 8.5 or so. So that's a very significant buff to this ship. And I would say, arguably, this ship benefits the most out of going down the utility tree amongst any of the 5 capitals that we have. As far as researches go, I would argue that you probably want beams if you think you're going to be going heavy on fighters, because as I showed, the fighters actually get beam weapon damage bonuses now. It's in the improve list now, and it goes up from 12 when they fix it in patch 1.41. And then otherwise, you can skip everything except for precise turret servos. This will help you clear some missiles a little quicker with range. And then you should probably be getting pulse weapon upgrades anyway. So you got a 9.6 damage there versus 4.5. So you basically double your point defense damage to missiles. Otherwise, you're kind of along for the ride for all these waves. You don't care about your wave damage. Pulse weapons, you're not getting it for this ship. You're getting it for other ships in your fleet. Beams, you're probably getting it for other ships in your fleet, and the fighters just come along for the ride with it. And then as soon as you can get to precise turret servos, I think this is a good technology to get. Otherwise, you want the tanky, the survival tree. Survival tree basically gives all of your other ships longer chances to survive, which gives this ship the ability to do its job and medic for them. Shield regen in combat helps a lot. I think skipping Strikecraft armor is important. I don't think you're going to care too much about it, where armor regeneration is going to win you fights. I think you're going to either win handily or lose handily already, and just having that bonus armor regen is not going to make or break it. And then lastly, the ship kill experience. You do kind of like getting experience on this one because you want levels. You want the levels for the skill upgrades, and the skill upgrades also give you a reduction in antimatter. So just in general, I think this goes without saying that every capital ship wants experience just because of the bonuses they get with the levels that they get. So grabbing this early if you can, I think, is a good move. Second generation crews, I would say that if you think you can get that out and you have the Anvar available to get that, building this and immediately speccing both into both heals where it comes out as a level 2 is a good thing. And then if you can get it to come out as a level 3, you can grab 2 skills in nanite armor and then 1 in repair cloud, and you've essentially doubled your effectiveness of nanite armor. And then you don't care as much. You do come out with you'll be at 3 strikecraft instead of 2, and then once you get to level 3 for 3rd gen, then you're only 1 level away from getting a 4th set of strikecraft. So all in all, quite good. And then antimatter regen. Like I said, this is probably the one ship that actually wants the max antimatter and cares less about the regen, because regen of 36 is next to nothing. I've got 3.9. I'm going to take this off. And this has a base of 2.3. You pretty much went up from like 1.8 to 2.3, and that's with maxed regen. So it's not about the regen, it's about the max antimatter more than anything else, which gives you that significant boost to the ability to cast more times. As the game starts, because you start with the evacuator, to go Skirantra, you need, I believe it's two Endurium and 1 Kalinite, which means that the only other way you can build is if you build this second. The only other ship you can build is the Desolator as the 3rd, without having additional exotics picked up. Using 2 whites takes away the core toll, so you'd have to find 1 more Endurium if you wanted to go Devastator instead, or you'd have to find 1 more white if you wanted to go Marauder. And I would recommend, if you're going to go anything, if you can find that Endurium somewhere, keep your starting egg, grab your Skirantra, and grab your Desolate or your Devastator. Otherwise, synergy-wise, if we're talking mid-game, you're going to want at least 1, if not 2 of these. And when you get to end game, and let's say your fleet is 4 Desolators, probably 2 Marauders, or in my opinion, as many Marauders as the enemy has of Raptures or Radiances or Progenitors, or whatever one you want to be using Phase Out Hull on. Whatever's this is being used on. You want probably 6 to 10 of Skirantras. You probably want 10 Devastators. Probably only 2 or 3 Evacuators at most. As many Marauders as you think you can fit into your group, and then probably 4 Desolators. So there will be a lot of carriers, and you'll have to figure out how best to manage them so that you can continue to provide nanite armors on any of the ships that you are taking damage. I believe that's it. And then frigates and cruisers that it works well with. So Repair Cloud does work on both of the corvettes. So if your corvettes are nearby and they're taking minimal damage, the Repair Cloud, actually 24 armor and health is actually a really big amount of health on the corvettes. And depending on how the enemy is doing target selection, the defensors can actually have quite good survivability if the enemy is not focus firing well. The Junsarak, you might want a couple of these in your fleet. It'll just add extra point defense into your fleet. And if the enemy is very missile heavy, very corvette heavy, or very fighter heavy, the Junsarak coupled with this will quite quickly clear the skies. And with your heavy fighters, you should have air dominance after. You should be able to get air dominance, which is even just a couple of these. Canrex will do damage if you don't have damage, because this ship is, I'm going to say it's not your frontline ship, so your Canrex will be your DPS. You don't care as much about keeping that alive. It's going to be at the range where you should be, so you'll end up healing it on accident. But you're not. I would argue you're not trying to keep this alive if you don't need to. Trying to think what else. If you are also in range of the Oppressor, Repair Cloud does a significant amount of healing to them. You can also cast Nanite Armor on it, but I would save your armor cast for your capital ships if they're taking damage. And then you can also have some transporters that sit back near your Skirantra, have just a significant point defense presence, and also have a significant air presence, and just either clear the skies or bomb everything with the bombers. And then last, the Volrak. I don't have as much experience with the Volrak. This is kind of your star-based killer. And once you've stacked enough speed boosts with Berserker, with Resonance for move speed, and with the Marauder, they can go quite quickly. I think I've gotten it up to like 1100 move speed or something with silly buffs and messing with pirates and whatnot. So that is the Skirantra. Please let me know what your thoughts are on the ship. I think it was buffed. I don't think it was buffed to the point of being overpowered. If anything, this was already quite strong with Nanite Armor and Repair Cloud because they didn't touch those. What they did do is they just kind of buffed all of the capital ships' health and survivability, and then gave you one fun new toy in Inertial Anchor. But for the most part, it still plays the same as it used to, with antimatter and with healing, and it's still your medic. So leave a comment below. Let me know if there's something I got wrong, something I could do better, or if you learned something new about this ship. Look forward to your feedback. Thanks.